Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can enable notification in your React Native applications. So this over here is what we are going to be achieving today. We're going to see how you can send remote notifications. So guys, actually this is part of my Fullstack React Native course that I released over here on YouTube. So if you want to learn super base, full stack functionality, e-commerce, state management with Zustand, Next.js admin panel, authentication, authorization, middleware, all of that is actually baked in the full course. So make sure you don't miss out on that. But if you're here for notification, let's go. In order for us to enable push notification in our application, we're going to make use of Expo application service, which is just a suite of tools that we can use to build, to test, and to deploy our mobile applications more effectively. So come over to expo.dev and sign up or sign in if you already have an account. So I'm just going to create an account for myself and fast forward through this process and make sure you confirm your email. So now we are here. I'm going to quickly Google search for Expo application service so that we can come over to the documentation. And over here, somewhere in the documentation for the ES build, let's see if we have a link to how we can go on to create our first build. So here, create your first build. You will see that the first thing you need to do is to install the EAS CLI using this command. So copy it. And if you come up here, you see we also have a recommendation to use npm instead of yarn for global package installations, just a recommendation. And after you have the CLI installed, the next thing is to log in to your Expo account, and then you're going to configure your project. So here in my terminal, I'm going to add sudo in front, super user do, and then paste in this command, which is going to prompt for my password. I will also provide my password and then execute, which is going to take some time to install the ES CLI globally on our machine. And once it is done, we can now proceed to logging in here. So what's going to happen is it is done for me. We need to log in, and if you come back to the documentation guide, you will see the command, so ES login. So just copy this and come back, and I will just fast forward and provide my username as well as my password. Okay, so once you're authenticated, the next command is to configure your project build. So using this, I'm going to copy this and paste it here, which is going to give us our build configuration JSON file. So let me close all, and it asks me if I would like to create this project. I would say yes, hit enter, and now it's going to create this new project for us. And once it is done, we should get our project ID, which is what we need for. So I'm going to also hit all here to build for all platforms. So we need the project ID. You see here, we have this es.json. And if we visit this es.json, which is created right in the root of our project, you see just creates, it has this configuration build here. And also, if you come right here to the app.json, you see right here, we have this new ES key here with the project ID, which is what we need for push notification. So let's continue. All right, so we are done with the setup guide. Now we need to continue. Let's close all these tabs that we have opened and then come back to the documentation on how we can enable notification. You can search for it here, but I already have the URL. I'm going to paste it right in here, and you can just double check. But anyways, we want to come over to the push notifications setup section here. And here you see that we need to install the app by installing a set of libraries. We're going to be doing that in a second. And then we basically need to do two things. And the first thing we need to do, requirement, is the user permission to send them push notifications. And then we also need the user's Expo push token. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is to install this set of libraries. You can just copy them, come back to the application, open up your terminal, and then I'm going to clear the previous and paste it in here. So we are installing these libraries. Let's take a moment to discuss about what we are actually installing. So back in the documentation, we are installing the Expo notifications library. And this library is used to ask for the user permission and also to fetch the Expo token. So the Expo push token, and it doesn't work on the simulator devices. So we should just have that in mind. Then next is the Expo device. Now this Expo device, we use it to check if the app is running on a physical device. And lastly, we are using the Expo constant, which is used to retrieve the project ID from our application config. You saw it last time out. So this is a working example, which is going to be super useful and handy. We're going to make use of these throughout the notification process. But if we double check our application to see if the installation is complete, now it is done. Okay, so let's create a provider. I'm just going to collapse all of these that we have opened. And right here inside the source folder, we need to come to the providers, and we're going to be creating a new notification-provider.tsx file because we need to provide it to application. And right here, oops, not really provide, but we want to have the setup here. So I'm going to have const notification provider, notification, hope no typo, provider is going to take in children like this. And for the type, children is going to be of type prop with children. So props with children should be imported from React. And inside here, we want to return fragments with children like this. And then we want to export the notification provider as a default so that we can wrap our entire stack with it here. Talking about wrapping our entire stack, we should come over here and to the app folder, to the underscore layout file. And here we have the stack, which I'm going to collapse. And then I would cut. So I'll just highlight all and cut. Have our notification provider, which should be imported from our provider folder. And then I'm going to paste it right in here. So save it, and then we can come back to the notifications provider. What do we need to continue? We should check the documentation. So come over to the documentation, and here we need two functions we are going to copy. So if you scroll further down, you would see this handle registration error. So we need to copy it as well as this function. So I'm just going to copy everything. I'm just going to highlight them. And then I'm going to copy. And once you have it copied, no worries. I would walk us through this function we are copying right in our code. So let's come back to the IDE, and we need to just paste it right here. So actually it's in a new file. So I'm going to be creating a new file for it. And this is going to be right in the lib. I'm going to create one for the notification.ts because these are two helpful functions that we need. So let's outsource it here to this library. And then we can paste it right in here. It's okay, we have errors, and that's for the import. So let's come back to the documentation. And here we'll just scroll to the top, and then I would import all of these, and then we can let go of every or anything we're not using. So let's come to the top here, and then I'm going to paste it here. So we don't need the imports from React. Let's get rid of everything. And then from React Native, we don't need the text, view, button. Let's get rid of everything. And that's about it. Okay, so let's walk through the function. The first is the handle registration error, and just goes on to throw an error. Nothing much happening there. And then we check in if it's an Android device. We have some configuration that we are setting right in here, such as the name, the vibration, the color, and all of these. So that's what we're doing here. And next, because it needs or it doesn't work on the simulators, we are checking if it's a real device. Then we are checking if this user has granted permission. And here, if the permission is not granted, we are going to get the status. And with the status, we can check if the status is not granted. Then we are going to call the handle registration error and throw the error and return so we don't continue. And then we have the project ID we are retrieving from the application config. And if we can't retrieve it, then we have this error. And if we retrieve it, then we can, you see, we are returning it here. Otherwise, for any unknown error, we are just calling the handle registration error function. So that's what is going on here. Where do we use this function? We're going to use it in the notification provider. That's where we're going to be making use of this function. And for that, we need to know how we can use this function there. So again, we are going to be double checking from the documentation how we can use this function right inside the notification provider. So let's come over to the documentation guide. And right here, we need to, if you scroll down, you would see how they use these two functions in their own dummy application here in the app folder here, or in the app file. So let's copy the entire use effect, and this entire use effect we are going to use inside of our own application. Right here, I'm just going to come here and paste in the use effect. So we still need to have some values in state. So let me come back here before we can handle the imports. And here, I'm just going to bring these values that I'm handled in state and also the use ref values, copy everything. And just above the use effect, we can paste it here. So now we can go for the imports. Let's come back to the documentation, scroll to the top, and let's get all the imports that we need here. So again, I'll bring everything, and whichever we don't need, then I will let go of. So, and then I'll paste in here. Okay, so the first thing we see, I will get rid of these props with children so that we don't import React twice. And then I'm going to import it from this React here. And then we don't need the import from React Native. We also don't need the device here. And we also don't need the constants from here. Okay, so we need the register for push notification async, our own function that we just wrote out. And we forgot to export the function. So let me come here and double check. Yeah, so we have the function, but we are not exporting it from this file. So over here, I'm going to be exporting this as a default. So I'm going to export default, and then the function. Now we can come back here and we can import it from here like this. Okay, so we still need one more thing, the set notification handler. So let's come back to the documentation, and here, so we need this function. Let's copy this function and come back to our application, and then we can paste it right in here. Okay, so we have the basic initialization set up for our push notification, but now we need to test it on a real device, because as we have seen throughout, we can't test this on the simulator. So what's going to happen is I'm going to set up my device and screen share so that you can see the push notification, and then I'm going to try it out and how everything works. Hello, so so far we have been doing the setup for our notification. Now, as we have seen, we have some limitations testing on the simulator, so we need to test it on a real device. And for that, I'm going to be bringing up my device right here, and in the Play Store, you can search for Expo Go. And this Expo Go is what we would use to test out the notification that we have set up. You do go on and download or install, but in my case, I have it, so I'm just going to open it up right here. Okay, so once you have this open, the next step is to make sure you have your React Native application. Obviously, it should be up and running. So run npm start, which is going to start up the application. But now we're not going to use I or A for Android. We need to scan this barcode. So over in your mobile application, in your device, on your real device, you can now scan this with your camera or any QR scanner you have, and open it on Expo Go. So this is going to open up, but we need to see the logs, because in our application over here, we have some values that we are storing in state. So currently it's building and it's done. So to see the logs, we need to log those values to the console. So come over here in your React Native application, you see the Expo push token and the notification. Over here in the provider, you can just log these values to the console so that you can have the, what is it called, the Expo push token that you're going to use to test out the push notification. So you can log it here. And the next one is the notifications object. So copy the notification object and just duplicate this other console.log and log them both to the console. Now, for this to work on your device, you need to set up the permission for Expo Go notification, because currently you don't have the permission. So over on your device, you need to go over to your settings, And here in the settings, you can search for Expo Go. And if you see the Expo Go, do open it up. You see notifications is off. So click on it and allow notification. You have access to different customization, but for the show preview, it is you see when unlocked default. So I want to make sure that it is always there. So click on that lock screen appearance and make sure it's always there, at least for our testing purposes. And then I'm going to go back to the application. So Expo Go here and open up our application. And actually, for us to test this out now, we need to rescan. So open up your camera again and then adjust and make sure that you rescan your application. Make sure you rescan the QR code so that it can rebuild. And once it rebuilds with the correct permission set, you should now see the console, the logs printed to the console. So we're going to see it except the notification, but we're going to see the Expo push token here. So now you see the Expo push token twice, but we don't see the notification. So copy this, and then with this copied, we're going to be testing it out. Okay, in the guide, there's a service that we have that we could use to test out the notification. So copy this exponent push token, copy everything with the parentheses, and then I have already set for Expo push notification tool here. It's just a tool that's going to send push notifications with that token. And once you're here, you see the recipient is that token. So we need to paste in the token here, and every other thing can remain as it is except the message title. So I'm going to use my brand name here, code with Larry, as the message title. You can use any message title of your choice, and the body could be some test notification, just something that you can see while you're testing it out. And I will just play the sound. I don't think there will be any sound, but you could just play it and then send the notification. And now you see the notification is working. You can send as much as you can for your testing purposes, and you see everything notification coming here. And this is just working with Expo Go because we are currently testing. So this is what we have. Now we are going to continue and see how we can do the remote notifications. On the left, we have our admin panel, and on the right, we have our React Native application. So let's see, what are we doing so far when the user grants access to notification. We have the function that we use to register, and then this function sets it in state. Now, rather than set the token in state, we want to set it right here in our Supabase project for the user. So we're going to be updating the user schema to add a new field. Come over to this plus icon here and add a new field. Give it the name of maybe Expo notification token. So Expo underscore notification underscore token, any name that makes sense to you. And the type of this is going to be a text, and allow nullable, and then you can save this new property. Okay, so now we have this new property that we can use to store. Back to the application, we're going to try to update our TypeScript schema. So here we have the npx Supabase gen types, and we need the project ref. If you come over to the project settings, you would see your reference ID. Now come back here and let's update the project ref to our project ID. And how about the path? I think is source /database. Let's double check. If we check the Explorer, you would see right here, it's types, and then we have the database.types. So let me have a path for the types, and then /database types.ts. Now this is going to update our schema, and you can always check if you come right here in the types folder, database.types, you would see that the new user now has this new row. So this is the first step. Now, rather than save this in state, I'm gonna have the function here, token. Yeah, I think this is okay. And in here, we're going to check if there is no token.length, then we want to return. And next, we want to get the session from Supabase. So over here, we're going to say const can get data. And from data, we want to destructure session, which is going to be coming from awaiting the call to Supabase. So supabase.auth.get session. So we need to import Supabase, obviously. So supabase.auth.get session here. Okay, so here we can also have a quick check. If there's no session, let's return. And now from the session, let's run the update with the user ID. So we're going to await Supabase, and from the users table, so from the users table, we want to run an update for which row, and that's the Expo notification token row like this. So bring this in, and we brought in maybe one too many. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to get rid of the where clause here. So I'm just going to pretty much format this properly, and then come right below and add the where clause. So want to update for just this particular user. So this is what we do here. Now, rather than set state only, when the then case here, we are also going to now get the token and call our function. So come down below here, we're going to call this function that is going to help us to run the updates here. So this is all we need to do from our React Native shop to get this up and running. Now the focus should be on the admin side of things. Now over in the admin, when do we want to save this? Here, it's when we create an order, right? But first, let's also bring in the Supabase types. So here, I'm going to check the path, the source, Supabase, and we have the types.ts. So let me also update the path here. So source Supabase types.ts, and the project ref, we need to also bring it from our Supabase. So right over to project settings, we need to copy the reference ID and then update the reference ID here. Okay, so once this is done, we can now focus on the action that updates an order. And that is the source action, and we have the order action, so the orders.ts file. And this function, update order status, gets called when we want to update an order. We're going to create one for notifications. And here, we're going to have the use server directive. And next, we're going to have another function. So export const send notification. And this is going to take the user ID, the user of which want to send this notification to. And this user ID is a string, and then we're going to have the function body here. So the first thing we need to do is to get the token data from the user. It's going to be equal to await. Then we can call it get user notification token, another function which we are going to create. Notification token. So the token that we just stored in our React Native app. Let's define the function right here. So up here, we are going to have this function, and in here we can now make the call to Supabase. So okay, so we need to bring in our Supabase client. So right at the top, let's have our current Supabase. Like this is going to be equal to create client, and we're going to be using the one from the server here. Okay, so now let's get it. We're going to say const data error. I'm going to bring everything in, but rather than from user, we know it's going to be from users, and we know we also called it expo underscore notification underscore token. I don't get the auto completion, so let's type it out, expo underscore notification underscore token. So if you come over to the Supabase, that is this role over here. No, yeah, so this one here. And that's about it. We get it for the user.single. Now, when we get the token data, we need to just double check that it is there. So we're going to say if this like this, then we can go on to return. And the next thing we want to do is to send the push notification. And we need to get it from let's come back to the documentation guide from the Expo push notification. And here you see we have this function that we can use to send a push notification. So copy it and let's declare the function right up here. It uses the fetch API at the end. It gets the Expo token and then it constructs the message. And for now, we can leave all these hard coded. We're going to be updating it soon. And here it just sends it, uses fetch to send it. So that's all it's doing here. Now we can make sure we call this. So right after we verify we have the token, we have retrieved the token that we save. We're going to await this. Okay, and this is now going to help us to send the notification to the user. So let's try it out. We need to test it. I'm going to bring my mobile application and make sure you have the admin up and running. So first let me npm start the React Native application, because then we're going to update an order. And when we update an order, we want to make sure that we send the notification to the user device. So that's what we're trying to do here. And now it's up and running. We can also do the same for our React Native application. So I will clear and as well npm start. So now wait for it to bundle because we need to scan the barcode. So I'm going to bring up my device and scan this barcode. So make sure you scan it with your camera or with any QR scanner. And then you should be, you should go directly to our mobile application right up on your own device. Okay, so now that we have gone, or we have opened up the application on our real device, if you double check the logic that we are currently performing here, you see right here, we are making a call to update the user. So this user here to update the Expo notification token. And what this means is now, if we double check the Supabase application, and here you should see that for the, so you see it here for this user, we now have the Expo notification token registered. And that's super cool. We can now try this out with our localhost 3000 admin Next.js application to send notification to our device and see it work. So let's wait for our Next.js application. And if we come over to the orders section, let's send the notification by by updating the status of maybe this order here. So from pending, we can say it is now shipped, and we should see it. Actually it didn't send the notification. So we need to double check our application. Maybe somewhere we are not even calling the function. So we have the send notification, which sends this push notification. And let's double check in the orders.ts here. You see we're not even using the function. So what's going to happen is we need to call this send notification function. So this function, let's copy it and come over to our, so first let's call the function. So we're going to have await, and then we'll call the send notification, and then it needs the user ID. So let's get the user ID from that session. We're going to come here and say const, and then get data. From data, we get the session, and we're going to actually destructure it. So we need to have it in brackets like this. Then it's going to be equal to await Supabase, and then we have .from .auth, and then we have .get session, And then we are going to get the user ID. So from the session. So from here, if we come up here, we can just say const the user ID, not like this. I want to have the user ID. It's going to be equal to session like this, and I'll add an exclamation at the end. Now we can pass the user ID here, and we should expect this to work, because when we call the set notification, we get the token, and then we send the push notification here. So we're going to try it out again. Update this from shipped to in transit and give it a second. Now you see we are sending notification. Super cool. Let's come back to the IDE and let's make sure we no longer work with the hard-coded data here, the title, the body. We're going to accept it from the send push notification function, so the title and the body. And here the title, we're going to get it from the params, as well as the body. We're going to remove this hard-coded data we have. And general rule of thumb, when we are receiving 3 arguments like this, we should at least use an object. And I'll paste it in here. And also I'll get rid of the semicolon here and get rid of the string that I also have here. Okay, like this. And to make TypeScript happy, let's have the type definition for this. So it's going to be an object. And here we can bring in all of the types here. Now this is going to give an error down here because we also need to pass an object now. So here I'm going to have the object and pass everything here. But it's still hard coded. So let's update the title. We can just, it's actually up to you. We can just update the title to anything that, you know, really makes sense to you. So maybe your order status, anything at all. And the body, we can now display the status. So we can say, we can just find a way to attach the status right here. So your order status is now, and then we can now have the status here. And we're going to get the status from the function. It's going to be here, and we'll pass it here. And let's also have the TypeScript definition of string like this. Okay, so now in the order, we are getting the status from here. We can now pass the status here, and we no longer have any error. And now if we try, we update this from in transit to completed, you would see now that, yeah, so your order is now completed. Super cool. And if you also try, you can add, you know, some emoji just to spice things up. So I'm just going to add this plus, take the emoji, maybe a rocket emoji just to spice things up. Save, try again, and now update it to shipped, and we shall see the notification now come with our emoji, and we need to add a space. You get the idea. Okay, so there you have it. If you want to check out the Fullstack course, the link is in the description. And if you learned a lot from this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new, don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to see you in upcoming videos.